Hello and welcome to this week's episode of the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. This is DJ and I'll be your host for this week. I'm joined by Ashwin. We have just seen the first India versus New Zealand test conclude. A thrilling end to the test match, but we'll get to all of that. Ashwin, first of all, what's happening with you, man? What's going on at your end?
I mean, it sort of feels a little bit like March of 2020. There's a new variant, borders are shutting down, cricket series are getting cancelled. All the chaos seems like it's back. But anyway, we will try not to get too derailed with that. But it's been a crazy kind of last 72 hours, right? With the discovery of this new, I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong, but that Omicron variant and just crazy. So it's been a weird time, but we'll talk a little about the cricket. I was saying this in a couple of weeks ago when we had the episode, but this is the worst possible time zones for me, right? It is a 10 p.m. first ball, and the last ball is bowled by just before 5 a.m. That is peak sleeping hours for me. So on weekends, maybe I'll stay up to watch I watch the first session basically, but there's no way I'm getting the second or third. At least when they play in Australia and stuff, the games, or South Africa at least even, am I getting that right? Yeah, the games start later. And so at least I can wake up early and watch a little. Anyway, I've watched very little of this test. I've caught up on a lot of highlights, but a little unfortunate that I haven't been able to watch more of it live.
Yeah, England's probably pretty good time zone for you. Australia's pretty horrendous for me, actually, because it starts around 11 o'clock, or I think Perth starts at midnight.
Yeah, so Australia's good for me because it's early morning enough for me. Is that right? 11? No, sorry. Australia's like 4 p.m. in the afternoon for me, so I get all of it.
Yeah.
So anyway. Math is hard. Time zones are hard.
Which is why when anyone sees our Twitter account during Australia games, you know who's running it. Anyway, guys. This, if you're watching this on YouTube, like it, subscribe to this. Otherwise, if you're listening to it on a podcast app, leave us a review. There are thousands of you that listen to us. Why don't you review us? Anyway.
Only if you have good things to say, right?
Yeah. If you want to call us a moron or something else, like, maybe don't leave us a review.
And just do that on Twitter, because that'll go away better.
That's cool. Anyway, we're here to talk about the first India versus New Zealand test match. Ashwin, I want to get your first up, I want to get your reaction. What is your gut feel? What is your initial thoughts on the game?
So I went to bed when basically New Zealand had batted out the whole first session of day 5 without losing.
With a night watchman.
With a night watchman.
And one batsman, yeah.
And I woke up, so without getting too off track, I woke up and saw, wow, India got 9 wickets and it ended in a draw. Sounds like it got really close. I was pretty happy. It was a great fight back after one down. And again, I hadn't seen all the details. This is me, my eyes open at 5:15 in the morning, subconsciously just to check cricket buzz, and then I go back to sleep. And then before we got on air, your words exactly that unfortunately people missed was, man, we lost the test match. And I paused and I was like, we didn't lose the test match. It was a draw. So I clearly imagine if you watched that 10th wicket partnership and just our struggle to get that last wicket from Ravindra and Patel bowling to Ravindra and Patel batting, which is a joke we've made a lot, I can imagine how it felt like a loss. So it was interesting because I was expecting more wickets in the first session. So I stayed up, despite it being a working day Monday, and Sunday night I decided I'm going to stay up 10 to midnight, watch the whole session. I was excited. And when the night watchman just wasn't giving anything away, I thought, okay, this is going to be a draw. At one point I was worried we'd lose. And so getting to 9 wickets, I was pretty happy. But also now when you get deeper into it, so close, just so close to a win. So anyway.
Yeah, and as Indian fans, we're not used to getting this close and then being denied, right? Earlier this year, you remember Lords, you remember the Oval. These games had not Lords in the final innings, but the Oval had a partnership to start off with. It felt like for a long time like we were not going to break through, and then we did. And then we ran through the rest of it. But anyway, let's get into it. As I think I speak for a lot of people when I say that it was disappointing. But then it was a close match. In the final analysis, it looks like it may not have been close. There are going to be questions about captaincy. There are going to be questions about declaration. There are going to be questions about batting. And we're going to get into all of that. But first, Ashwin, let's go all the way back. Let's rewind to day 1, which feels like an age ago. This is why I like doing test matches. All the T20 stuff is fine. But when we do test matches, and we're recording on the day the test match is finished again, it feels like you've just lived the entire test match again. And again, I think the energy was a little bit down when we started, but I'm sure it'll get up, right? Okay, so day one, we win the toss for a change. Rahane is captain. Remember, Ajinkya Rahane is captain. We open the batting, pretty nice start. Shubman Gill opens with Mayank. Mayank goes early, but Gill gets in, gets a 50. Pujara is in with him. But then wickets start falling. I mean, Kyle Jamieson, man. Talk me through that guy's performance. Kyle Jamieson and Tim Southee in the first innings. In a country where the spinners do all the damage, these guys are pretty good with the ball seaming and swinging, right?
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Jamieson has now overtaken, I guess, Shane Bond to the fastest New Zealand cricketer to 50 test wickets. And it's unbelievable. Every time you watch him, he seems to be taking at least a 3-fer. He's obviously taken lots of 4-fers and more. But yeah, I think it just shows you that obviously pitches vary and India's historically spinners, wickets and all. But when you are hitting your lines, hitting your lengths, and extracting every last bit of help you can with the ball, like Southee and Jamieson did, you can create results just by being good at your craft, regardless of whether your craft is being supported by the pitch or not. So, I mean, yeah, I'm a little disappointed to have let Southee get a 5-fer in India on the first day. It's not what you expect from our batters, but full credit where it's due. He hasn't played a test match in India forever. And he just walks back into the side, a slightly depleted New Zealand bowling lineup, and picks up a 5-for. Jameson picks up 3. So outstanding bowling and full credit where it's due.
Yeah, and he gets his 5 on day 2, which we'll come to.
Right, yes.
But, and you said there's no Trent Bolt. Remember, India have lost KL Rahul. KL Rahul was injured. He's out for the series. Hence, Mayank, his teammate from Karnataka, opens the batting with Gill, goes early. Gill gets a 50, gets a beauty from Jamieson. Pujara goes as well. And then Rahane. Talk to me about Ajinkya Rahane at 4. To me, let me actually, I'll tell you what I think. I think he looked good. I think there wasn't a whole lot wrong with his innings of 35. I don't think there was, to be totally honest with you. He batted nicely, he batted well, he hit the gaps, he looked positive, his weight was coming into the ball. But then, if somebody hadn't watched that innings, they would have been like, he's gone again for 35, he hasn't got a big score. So, talk to me about Ajinkya Rahane's innings. Let's get to his captaincy in his spot, but just talk to me about the innings.
Yeah, I was actually hoping to hear you rant about Rahane, but I think that's coming, and maybe we'll have to force our listeners to wait till the second segment. Yeah, I mean, I'm with you, right? People who've listened to this show enough have heard that I kind of think about things in two ways, right? 35 on its own, not a great score, didn't go on to make a big score, but kind of a meaningless number without context, right? In a match where you get 36 all out, you can't pick one guy and say, oh, he only made 9. Yeah, but everybody failed, right? So the 35 that he made, the context of it matters. And I've said before, we tend to pick on certain players based on where they are in overall limelight, how their overall form is, all that stuff. I think it's important to dimensionalize. I'm getting ahead a little, but Rahane made 35, which he outbatted a couple of guys, but you had Jadeja make a 50. You had Gill make a 50. You had Iyer make a century, and you had Ashwin outscore him, right? So then you look at 35 and say, okay, not quite good enough for your number 4, for your skipper, not good enough, right? And so that's part one of the context I was giving. And the second is the manner of dismissal. And that's, again, something I always look at. And if I remember, he was trying to like hit a cut outside the off. Who was he? Who was Southee? Was it? No, Jamieson. It was Jamieson. And, yeah. Tall guy, gets a lot of bounce. He was trying to cut outside off, and he just got caught off guard, and to get bowled as a number 4 batsman is just a little bit embarrassing. So I think about both those things and say it wasn't his worst innings. He's had a very bad patch recently. He's had a lot of bad innings. This wasn't his worst, but it certainly wasn't enough to say Rahane is back, right? And that's the issue for me.
Yeah, and at that stage, you've lost 4 wickets, including your captain, including your most experienced batter. That's brought a man on debut. So Shreyas Iyer, who a lot of us, I didn't think he would play this test match if Rahul was fit, to be totally honest with you. Because I'd have Rahul and Mayank opening the batting, and I'd have Gill batting at 5, because I think that's where his natural home is eventually. Things turned out, things changed, and obviously you had Shreyas Iyer make his debut. And Ashwin, he's the third Mumbai batsman in a row who's made 100 on debut.
Wait, Shaw and who was before him?
Rohit Sharma.
Oh, of course. Yeah. Okay.
So what is it with these Mumbai batsmen and making test 100 on debut? Is test cricket too easy for them?
I mean, much as we as Delhi Capitals fans are not fans of the Mumbai Indians, you have to accept that as India fans, Mumbai is the school of batting that has brought us some of our best batsmen, right? No question about it. And it's unbelievable that you're continuing to churn out this factory of incredible batsmen. But let me be clear, Shreyas Iyer has shown us that he's class. Right? I said, not as even just a few episodes ago, I said he just had an untimely injury that he kind of got forgotten. Say from both India, from an ODI setup at one point, we were like, he's clearly our number 4, all that. He should have found a spot in the T20 side based on what people were saying. Then he had a good run for Delhi as captain. And then because of injury, Rishabh Pant ousted him and then just kind of stayed. So much so that now Pant is being retained and Iyer isn't. And we'll talk about that in our final segment. But so all that said, there's no doubt Iyer is a class batsman. Yes, the game of Test cricket is different, though. But he has done this time and time again for Mumbai. He's done this for his Ranji side. He said in an interview he went to bed at 75 not out at the end of day one and didn't sleep great, obviously, because the nerves and the excitement of Test cricket is different. But I was just very excited for him to get over the line because this guy has worked hard, put in the hours, put in the effort, and has deserved it. So really, really just chuffed for him. And you can tell I'm a big Iyer fan anyway. I always
yeah. He's captain of the Delhi Capitals for those 2 years, right? But it's interesting you said he's from the Mumbai School of Batsmanship, which is the Khadu School of Batsmanship. Apparently, they say you don't get out if you make 100, you've got to go on to make a double 100 and a triple 100. Iyer doesn't bat like that. Iyer has a strike rate of over 80. I think he strikes at 82 in first class cricket while averaging 50, which is insane. I think it's the highest strike rate anyone's had in first class cricket. I think including maybe the great Virendra Sehwag. But I'll have to double check that stat.
It's a great stat, yeah.
It tells you that he attacks the bowling. He's good at batting against spin. Even here, he batted quicker than anybody else, right? So, and there will be questions asked about his ability against a short ball, whether he's a long-term prospect in Australia, South Africa, England. What's he going to do against the moving ball? All these are still valid questions. But what we should not take away is that it is very hard to play Test cricket and it's very hard to score 100 batting at number 5 when your team is 141 for 4.
Yes. And the position where he came in, your captain was out. Pujara was out. Both your openers gone, right? And you're batting basically, I mean, I'm a big fan of Jadeja. He's done unbelievably well, but you're batting mostly with guys who are in the team as all-rounders, right? Now, separate discussion about Jadeja, Ashwin, Aksar as 7, 8, 9, or whatever, Jadeja, Ashwin, Aksar, Saha as 6, 7, 8, 9, and the depth it gives you. But man, like to bat with the middle to lower order and to come out good and get your team from a position, what were we, like 140 for 4 to get us to 350 odd is phenomenal, just phenomenal. In your first match to not just bat well, but shoulder the burden and shoulder the responsibility. Just so excited. Really well played.
Yeah, it was brilliant innings to Iyer. It was nice to see that Seat blade flashing all over the place in a test match, and it wasn't Rohit or Mayank doing it for a change. But let's talk about that. Jadeja got 50. His batting has gone from strength to strength. You see him applying himself. He just doesn't come out and slash. I think some people still expect him to slash the ball everywhere and score a quick 550. He's batting like a proper batsman now, which is great to see. So on day 1, we ended at 258 for 4. Which is just under 3 runs and over, but you'd recovered from a position where you could have arguably said, okay, maybe 250 all out, right? But from there, Ashwin, we then on day 2 had a bit of a collapse. Jadeja went without scoring. Iyer got to his 100, but then we lost Akshar, we lost Ashwin actually had a brief flurry. Ashwin, we'll talk about his role in this team because I don't think he appears on any of the top scorers or highest wicket takers in the match summary, but his contribution was immense, right? He's bowled 73 overs in this game as well, it's a mind-boggling stat. It's almost like, 3/4 of a day's bowling. It's insane.
I mean, a classic all-rounder contribution, if you will, right? Made more than 30 runs in each innings, picked up 3 wickets in each inning. Like that, he just contributed everywhere, but exactly to your point, he won't be the star standout in any of the innings, but absolutely played a critical role, both with bat and ball.
Yeah, and went past Harbhajan Singh's record, 418 test wickets now.
Yeah.
And apparently he used to copy Harbhajan Singh's bowling action in school. So that was
That's
pretty
awesome.
fun.
That's a fun song.
That's a nice little touch there. And I mean, he later said that milestones don't matter and these will come and go. You won't remember these 10 years later. But congratulations to him. I mean, it is still important. I think it makes him the third highest wicket taker at the moment, behind Kapil Dev and Kumble for India. So
Yeah.
that's going to be cool. I mean, Kapil Dev surely got to be in his side.
Yeah.
So.
What, 16, 17 more wickets? Yeah.
Yeah. But then, I mean, with 258 for 4, were you a little bit disappointed that we ended at 345 all out?
Yeah, I think so. I don't know. I still have this. Our lower order has been great, right? I still have this PTSD or whatever you call it about how bad India's tail is. And so for me, I have almost no expectation from number 7 through 11, which is part of why I'm saying if you have 7, 8, 9 as talented as Ashwin, Akshar, and Jadeja, that changes the game for you. But in my head, I'm never expecting that many runs from the lower order. So I would say, some people may have looked at it and said it's a 500-ish run pitch on day one or whatever in first innings. I think we were close enough to par that, disappointing that the tail didn't wag for longer. Honestly, mostly just disappointed with Saha. And you kind of expect a little bit more from Akshar, but I don't think you can ask for more than 50 from Jadeja, 38 from Ashwin. Like that's the roles they're there to play, right? I think you don't look at 345 and say the lower order underperformed. You look at 345 and say Mayank's 13, Pujara's 20 odd, Rahane is 35. Those were where we fell short.
Interesting. Yeah, that's fair. I mean, if we'd got to 400, maybe we would have had more time. Maybe we didn't need to score those extra 30 runs, 40 runs in the third innings, right? Maybe. Anyway, ifs and ands, right? We'll see. Get bowled out for 345. New Zealand come out. This Tom Latham guy, man. Tom Latham guy and Young. I mean, what is it with these New Zealand guys? We used to not like the Aussies and the English because we used to lose to them, but are you starting to dislike this Kiwi team just because they're so good at cricket?
And I didn't even really know who Will Young is. Like, I don't...
He's a replacement for Devon Conway, the guy who scored 100 against us earlier on.
I know, that's what I'm saying. So when Conway got injured in the World Cup, I guess it was, I didn't know who, I wasn't paying attention to who. I was like, who is this Will Young guy? And then he comes out, almost makes a century. Latham almost makes a century. At one point, there were 150 for no loss. And I was panicked. I was immediately, all the fireworks started going off, like this, complacency this and captaincy, which again, we'll talk probably in our next segment.
Oh, yeah.
And everything started, but 150 for no loss against India with 3 quality spinners, just phenomenal batting. They didn't give any opportunities even. Like they just looked so good. And again, if there were drop catches or something that ESPN Plus
they had a bit of luck. It fell short.
Yeah,
there are few that fell short. I don't think there were any drop catches in the first.
So those didn't show up in the highlights, which is why it looked very clinical. But honestly, outstanding. I will shout out though when they eventually did both get out. Saha at this point had gone off. Shrikar Bharat was on wicket keeping and just, similar to Iyer, just looked like he belonged. Like he's been a test wicket. I don't even know how old he is, but looks like he's been a test wicket keeper his whole life. He just, against 3 tough spinners in tough conditions, he was just keeping magnificently. So it was great to see. Just nice to see that.
I have a question for you. I don't think he gets credit for the dismissals. Does he also get discredit for the byes that went through?
Oh, but does it go to Saha? I don't know. I guess byes don't officially get recorded on set, but yeah, no, it'll say stumped by sub. It won't actually go to. Yeah, it says
stumped sub KS Bharat.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Unlucky Tom Latham got he got really unlucky. One spun out of the rough, hit him, and went straight to Bharat, who was like lightning quick. And once that first wicket fell, you sort of you knew what was going to happen.
Did you? Because that first wicket fell at the best batsman in the world right now across all 3 formats. And that's maybe a controversial statement. But that guy walks in, Kane Williamson. World Cup runner-up in the ODIs and the T20 and World Test champion captain. Walks in. He's been in phenomenal form. At 150 for 1 with Williamson 1 down and Taylor 2 down, I did not expect any sort of collapse was inevitable. Let's be clear. You're really telling me you did?
It's India, man. Like once you get in,
dude,
like it's
maybe I'm just pessimistic.
Ashwin, Jadeja, Akshar, they get on a roll. Talking about Akshar, Is Test cricket too easy for this guy?
Haven't we had a whole episode almost where like, what is this guy? He walks in, keeps picking up 5 he picked up, I think the second innings of this test finally ended his consecutive streak of 4 which is unbelievable. And what did he pick? He picked up 2 or 3 in the last. I guess he only had 1 in that line. But
he had five wicket hauls in 7 games at one point, and 7 innings in one point.
That's unbelievable. Just unbelievable.
Every time he basically turned up to bowl, he took a 5 for.
And people will say, "Oh, but what about?" Oh, yeah, but he hasn't performed overseas and stuff. But let's be clear, like early on in his career, I don't know, I don't have the data, but Vernon Philander probably had most of his early success in South Africa, right? Like Jimmy Anderson, we've seen his numbers. We've crunched all his numbers in England versus outside England. So for some reason, there's this double standard for spinners in India, but I give full credit where it's due. He's been unbelievable.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. He was fantastic. But New Zealand made us grind, man. That was the issue. We bowled 142 overs in that first innings. And in the final analysis, where we ran out of time, basically, like you can talk about light, you can talk about all declarations, but we ran out of time. Having batted for 142 overs against the 111 overs that we took to score 50 runs more, at a run rate of 3.1, we scored at 3.1. New Zealand scored at just over 2. They scored at 2.07 in the first innings, but they took time and overs, and they got the bowlers tired. In the final analysis, how much do you think that 142 overs would have counted?
It's huge, and that's what makes Test cricket so amazing, right? You think about T20 being mostly about how many runs can you score in a certain number of balls and this, that, but Test cricket has so many variables because of its nature, because of its 5 days, etc. And the fact that we were 1 wicket away, we ran short on time / overs, and New Zealand ate up overs. I mean, Tom Blundell, 13 of 94. It's obscene, right? He just grinded it out, and I think it makes a tremendous difference, and that's what makes a champion Test match side. That even in India, even in tough conditions, even when, like you said, it was inevitable that after the first wicket fell, the spinners would cause a collapse, they still batted it for a very long period of time, and that made the difference in the game.
And just before we go into our break, what did you make of the Kanpur pitch at this stage? Sort of halfway through the game.
Yeah, I'm trying to think through what the comments were, etc. I mean, isn't
low bounce? There were a few that snuck under the bat. Like I think Blundell got one that went under his bat, which is a bit shocking.
Yeah. I mean, look, the classic template is easier to bat on early on, and starts to get tougher and roughen up and become better for spinners later. And I guess that happened. We've talked a lot about how remember all the conversation about should we shorten Test to 4 days. This match went the distance. And so, yeah, obviously there's imperfections and it wasn't great in every way, to your point, with low bounce and stuff, but hey, relatively easier to bat on day 1, to an extent part of day 2 started getting progressively tougher. I think it played its part.
Yeah, and then at the end of day 2, what was it? The end of day 2, the end of day 3, 1 second.
Yeah, it would have been day 3, basically.
So at the end of day 3, New Zealand were bowled out, short of the Indian total. We had a 50-run lead. Was it 50?
Yeah, 40-something, 49. Math is not easy.
49 run lead.
Your mental math is always...
we had a 49-run lead, and we'd already lost Shubman Gill. So on that note, at the end of day 3, we will go into our first break, and we will see you straight after this break. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back from that break, and you're still listening to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. We are talking about the first Test match. India currently leading by 50 runs in the first innings. They've lost Shubman Gill. And at one stage, they're 51 for 5. Ashwin, again, the top order... Gill went the day before, Mayank went, Pujara didn't score, Rahane again. I mean, he's just scored 4 and he's gone plumb. We didn't even bother to review it. That's how plumb LBW was to Jas Patel. And then, again, Shreyas Iyer, Jadeja has gone like his ally in the first innings. Jadeja, I think, went for a duck to Saudi around the wicket, and Saudi was destroying. He was destroying our team, and we were effectively 100 for 5. At that point, India were looking in danger of losing the Test match on day 4. Right? If Iyer, a debutant, I will remind you, hadn't stood up and scored 65, and Ashwin, again, invaluable innings. You can look at a scorecard, you can see Rahane scored 35 in the first innings. But then you look at the scorecard and you see what Ashwin scores in the second. I think he got 32. How many did he get?
He did 32. Yeah.
Yeah, he got 32 in the second innings, right? That was an invaluable innings for me. That innings sort of saved India from losing the test match and put us in a position where we could win the test match. Of course, Iyer went last ball before tea for 65. I thought New Zealand were a bit lucky on this day. There were a few that went down the leg side. There were a few that were strangled down. I just thought New Zealand got luck, but you've got to build on that luck. So, but then Saha comes out with a stiff neck. He scores 50. Akshar helps him out as well. Ashwin, they've come out and defended the declaration, right? They've come out and said we batted the correct amount of time. But did you think that we could have shown a bit more intent at some stage? We were batting it 2.5, 3 runs and over. Akshar Patel can bat. Of course, Saha can bat. You had Umesh to come.
So I'm going to be as critical of this captain as I think you are or anybody is going to be. But I will defend in this case, I think, the fact that when you are 51 for 5, which, yeah, got it, effectively exactly 100 for 5, but 51 for 5 in that innings, you're not thinking about anything other than avoiding the loss. Okay, so play this out as it goes, right? What do you think you need comfortably to defend in a fourth innings? Probably 200 to 250. 250 is comfortable, 200 is risky, but maybe still safe. At 150, 175, I'm talking the total lead, obviously, you're going to lose the match on somewhere between day 4 and early day 5. That's what you're thinking. And so when you're 51 for 5, I don't think there's discussions about intent and how many do we need, etc. Ashwin puts up a good partnership with Iyer, but also goes at 103 for 6, which again is 152 run net lead. Feeling better, but still not quite there. Until Iyer grounded out. And again, Iyer made 60 of 120. Like Iyer batted at a strike rate of 50 something, which is not 52, yeah. Which is not great, but it's not bad. It's not that he batted at a strike rate of 25, 30. He was saving his team. He was saving the inning. So I feel like maybe when you had Ashwin and Saha batting after we had gotten sorry, not Ashwin, Saha. Akshar and Saha. When you had Akshar and Saha
that's
batting,
actually the only partnership I'm asking about.
Maybe at that point you could have sent word out saying start
everyone else is in a repair job, right, at that point.
Yeah.
But did Saha need to bat at 48 and did Akshar, who can smash the ball, need to bat at 41?
Yeah, I guess that's a fair question, because by that point your lead, by the time the two of them were batting together, your lead was 217-ish. And so maybe you could have accelerated a little bit more. Man, we were 1 wicket away, which means 1 ball away from winning this test match, right? So I don't know how much extra time would have necessarily helped. Maybe 5 overs here or there, but I don't know how much more than that you would have given
but
yourself.
Rather than having to make the decision, wouldn't you rather just hit out and get bowled out?
Yeah, I can see the merit.
And then the decision is taken out of your hand. But I mean, Jami sir is sitting in the dugout along with Rahane.
Yeah.
So, I mean, obviously, Jami sir has made some famous declarations before with Sachin on 194, no doubt. So
I think you have so quickly gone from, oh my gosh, we might lose this match, to, okay, now we're safe and now we're going for the win. And again, the beauty of Test cricket, that it's easy in hindsight to say you must have. I don't know. I wasn't watching it live again because of time zone. I don't know how many people were watching India at 170, 180 for 7, saying we must declare now, or we must tell them to hit out until they get out. Because again, at that point, there's risk they get out very quickly and you end up capitulating for 220, 230, which could be chased. It has been chased in India.
Yeah, and we will lead him by about 210 when Iyer went. We were 210 for 7 effectively.
Yeah.
So I think if another 30, 40 runs could have been added then and just getting out, that would have been fine. Because Saha, maybe it was a fitness thing. Maybe Saha wasn't able to. Let's give credit where it's due. Saha batted very well.
Batted great and saved
61, saved the day, right? I mean, with I just wish he'd accelerated, which he's capable of. He smashes it everywhere for the Sunrisers. And so does Akshar for Delhi Capitals. But anyway, hindsight is hindsight. 280 I thought was okay. The score was fine. I just wish we'd got there a bit earlier.
I think that's fair.
And then we lose.
I still think, you would say giving yourself, how many overs do we give us on day 1? Like 3, 4 overs? No, but 3 or 4 overs on day 4.
Yeah.
Plus the 90 odd, right? So I still think you say that much, you back your 3 spinners to get 10 wickets in that much time.
Yeah,
Like,
agreed.
let's say the run situation was different. I don't think your captain would have given yourself more time than maybe 15 overs on day 4 and then all of day 5, right? If you had the runs to do it. So I don't think there's that many overs different. So anyway.
Agreed. Anyway, so we got a wicket on the end of day 4, and that actually just looks like okay. I was wondering whether it would be over by the time I woke up on day 5, because often this happens. Like you get a wicket on day 4, or you get 2 wickets on day 4, and by like tea time on day 5, the game is over. So I get to watch like one session of the match, which is quite annoying for me. But today I got to watch the whole thing. Anyway, I woke up and Will Sommerfeld was batting, which was not good because he was a night watchman. Will Young had
Somerville, right?
Somerville?
Yeah.
I don't want to call him Summerfeld. Summerfield.
Yeah.
Summerfield is a school where I used to play cricket.
That might be it.
So Somerville.
But yeah, you could call him Will Somerville. Will Somerville. It's a paladin.
Will Somerville. Okay. Anyway, he's still batting, and he gets out first ball after lunch. Then we get another wicket. We get.
Can we just like how he got out or who got him out? Can we just address it really quick?
Umesh got
Williamson in the first inning.
Kane also first innings.
Yeah, I mean.
But yeah, okay, but why are we playing these fast bowlers if the spinners are just going to take the new ball? What is the point of playing these fast bowlers in India? The spinners take the new ball constantly.
Umesh is good with the old ball. There's merit to that.
Yeah, I guess.
Umesh doesn't always take the new
quicks?
ball. Yeah, maybe you just need one. No, maybe you don't need the second.
I actually think that we'll come to the selection for Wankhede because I have a feeling that one of the bowlers is going to pay the price for Rahane's mishaps. I have a bad feeling about this.
I mean, that happens all the time, right?
It's pretty shameful. Anyway, and then I mean, Taylor goes last ball before tea, right? Which is fine. Latham goes in the meantime, which was great because he was looking pretty stuck. But then Ashwin, 4 down going into tea, right? Again, you've seen so many, and you're going to have 15 overs with the new ball. We've seen so many test matches in India finish in the last session with Ashwin and Jadeja running through these things. Talk to me about Rahane's captaincy here. Because they are not chasing these runs. Why do we have fielders on the boundary even after Kane Williamson is gone? I understand building pressure and wanting people to have a release shot, but I'm talking in the last hour, right? They're 7 down or they're 8 down. They're doing nothing. They don't even want to get off strike anymore. There's an argument to be had. You keep a fielder out and try and see if the batsman wants to maneuver it to try and get off strike when there's pressure building. That stage had gone by the time Rahane still had fielders out. Is he just had a brain fade? Is he not used to doing the job? Was there a lack of intensity? Because we've seen this under Kohli, that the camera keeps going to him. Kohli's constantly chatting, geeing up. Was there a lack of intensity from the Indian team? Was shoulders going down when the partnership had built with Somerville and Latham?
Yeah, I mean, I think to an extent, right? There's a little bit of intensity in that discussion about just bringing your full energy and showing up really strongly. And then there's this, which is a whole team, which again, we will talk captaincy, but for all of Virat Kohli's flaws, one thing that you almost never see lacking, it's happened rarely, but almost never see lacking, is energy on the field. The amount of energy. And again, there are people who don't like it. They say his celebrations in Test cricket are not gentlemanly or not the spirit of Test cricket, but it brings an energy. And I think that was missing a little bit. But then the second question is on the tactics. And the short answer, DJ, is I don't have a good explanation for why he didn't have 9 guys around the bat, right, in that last hour, right? Just give the 6. If they're going to swipe out and go for 6, give him 1, give him 2, give him 3. Eventually, he's going to try a sweep shot for 6 and get LBW or, get a top edge to one of the close-in slip fielders or something. And so I'm fully supportive of the fact that this was a captaincy blunder. What I don't know is, hey, for a relatively younger captain, new coach, etc., well, why was he not getting the right level of support from the dressing room in drinks breaks, etc.? Why was he not getting the right level of support? I mean, look, the rest of the team, people like Ashwin with the ball, obviously has say in where his field placements go and stuff, right? So what I don't know is why there wasn't more input from everybody else and why that didn't come to life correctly.
Do you think Rahane has lost the confidence of the dressing room with him possibly being on his way out?
I mean, look, the truth is they all read the news, they all read Twitter, they all read all the things we do. So obviously there's discussions happening on the side. I think it's a little early to say he's already lost the confidence of the dressing room, but it's going to be a tough next few days, and it's not a long turnaround till the next test match, but it's going to be tough to see what the management decides. You noticed at the end, Rahane didn't say anything about who's going to make way for Kohli. He just said the management will decide that. So no inklings, no hints, nothing, and it's tough.
Okay, we are now going to take a short break. We're going to come back and talk about that last 40 minutes when Ravindra and Patel denied Ravindra and Patel and India a famous victory, batting out nearly 10 overs in the fading light against possibly the greatest spin attack in the world at the moment. We will also talk about what next for Ajinkya Rahane. We'll also talk about IPL retention. So there's a lot more to come. So don't go anywhere. We will see you straight after this break. Welcome back from that break, and you're still listening to the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast. Ashwin, 9 wickets down. You've done all the hard work. You've got Kane Williamson out. Jadeja is on fire. And then Rachin Ravindra. A combination of Rahul and Sachin. Is that real? Has he been named after Rahul and Sachin?
That's what I've read.
Urban legend, or is it true?
It's what I've read everywhere, so I have to believe it. I guess I'm choosing to believe it because it's
awesome,
a great story.
though.
Just a great story that he now plays international cricket. I mean, come on.
That's a great story. I mean, Sachin was named after Sachin Dev Burman, right? So.
Oh, I don't think I even knew that. That's a great story.
SD Burman.
Oh, nice. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. So anyway, so Rachin, Rahul and which is just, I wonder what kind of name Rachin was.
I feel like you were tweeting about some alternate names, right?
Yeah, it was great. I mean, Rachin would have definitely been a hashtag back in the day if we were tweeting when Rahul and Sachin were batting together. But talk to me about this boy. He's kept Neil Wagner out of the team, which raised a few eyebrows to start with. Bowled some decent left arm spin, electric in the field, and has denied Aksar, Jadeja and Ashwin for like 45 minutes along with number 11 to save a test match for his country. Was it a case of him just being a youngster without the fear of the big names and reputations and stuff, just played the ball?
I mean, it's probably partly that, like from a mentality standpoint, 22 years old, but also he is a left arm orthodox bowler. He is a left arm batsman, right? So I don't know if it doesn't always work, but you argue he might have a slight edge playing Aksar and Jadeja than over anybody else, just because this is his craft as well. But then, yeah, I mean, he was also very highly rated, right? He played New Zealand under 19. I think he played for the national side. And so let's give credit where it's due. He seems like he has the skills, and he's now proved he has the mental strength to do it too. But 22 years old, it's unfortunate when it happens against your team, but it's great to see a young talent anywhere stand up and save his team in game. To your point earlier, it's mostly been Indian youngsters who've been doing it, whether Shardul stepped up or Pant stepped up many times. Like, we were used to our guys doing it. It's nice to see somebody from the opposition doing it as well.
And he's got Rahul, Sachin and Ravindra in his name as well.
I mean,
so which is the better Ravindra?
He was born to
Which
succeed.
is the better Ravindra, dude?
The battle of the Ravindra? I think he has some work to do.
Who's the better Ravindra?
He has some work before he's competing with our boy Jadeja. But
I mean, it was amazing. The maturity he showed in that innings was just brilliant. Reviewing it when he was given out, I mean, the umpiring was pretty suspect, I have to say, this game. There were some really bad ones overturned.
There was the one, we didn't really talk about it, but the one that Ashwin got, that was it Latham or
it was Young.
Will Young hit the tee mark right after the 0-second countdown.
Yeah.
And the umpires, like Rahane and Ashwin, both said no. And they were right. They were in the correct thing to say he left his time elapse. So anyway, Will Eng.
Yeah, there was some pretty bad. I mean, the commentary as well. I'm not going to name names, but man, it's like the same 4 cliches have been played on loop. It's a bit much.
Yeah.
I haven't, and I don't tend to play cricket on mute. But this time, my wife was also happy that I was just playing it on mute. She was just like, "Thank God you're playing it on mute." I can't deal with the Australian commentators, but the Indian commentators have become. It's it's like the cricket was amazing, but it was being taken away from by the commentary. It was like it's that same cliche, man. Like, why aren't they wasting time? Oh, you can maybe lose another over if you go and have a drink. And you're just like, boss, what is this same nonsense that you've been spewing since like God knows when? It was, I mean, and I'm not saying that I want the job or we can do a better job, but I mean, someone else can do a better job than that. You don't have to play cricket to be a fucking commentator, man.
Be like
Which other games?
you've
Which
just given
other
our editors
game?
some bleeping work to do. Which is
Sorry,
great.
which other games only give the job to their ex players?
Yeah, it's 100% true. I don't disagree for
It's
a second.
ridiculous.
And it's not just only give the jobs to the ex-players. It almost feels like you give it to any ex-players. And so she's like, okay, what is your credibility? What kind of studying have you done? What kind of research have you done? How have you prepared yourself to be able to entertain? This is also the longest sport in the world, probably. Right?
Yeah.
So you've now...
You need someone interesting. You need to listen to someone interesting.
8 hours, 6 hours of play every day, plus the breaks where they're still commentating. 5 days, it's too much time. You need people who have interesting things to say.
It was, I mean, maybe I've been spoiled by the English commentators who are by far the best of the lot with DK and those guys here. Because DK is amazing. Why the hell is he not doing the commentary for his home board? Sky is contracted.
That's a good question.
It was painful, man. It was just that same 4 cliches trotted out over and over again. Oh, it was. I'll try and make a list of the cliches that come up again and again.
Yeah, I would love to hear them. Yeah.
Oh, there's some guy going on about the revs on the ball and it'll make it dip. You're just like, dude, you're not even talking physics anymore. You're just making up whatever you feel like and saying it. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, I'm the umpiring and the commentary, I think, deserves its own thing. But first test match in the Dravid era ended in a stalemate. Felt a little bit like a loss to Indian fans, I'm sure. And they don't even have Ravi Shastri this time to blame, or Virat Kohli. I mean, who are we going to blame for this?
I mean...
Tell me, who's going to get the shit for this test match? Being a draw, and it's so... let's start with, I'm selfishly, from a long-term view standpoint, I'm happy we didn't just roll them over. Right? That was a prediction we all made. It'll be done in 3.5 days. Like, our flights to South Africa were booked for the day after the next test ends because nobody believes India will need 5 days to dismantle New Zealand and all that. And maybe it'll happen in the second test. But it was nice that they put up a good fight because they are world test champions. And they showed that they showed that their title didn't come easy. And all that said, your question was, who's going to take the fall? And if Varun were here, we'd message Varun saying, hey, you're going to miss the recording because we're recording at 6 a.m. his time, so he couldn't be here. But he said, what do you want to make sure our listeners hear from you? And he said, he said it in much more colorful language than I'm going to say, but make sure you talk about Ajinkya Rahane and Jinx out. And so it feels like the fall guy has to be Ajinkya Rahane. He hasn't been captain long enough, obviously. The one prior match before this, most recently, I guess that he was captain, was a resounding victory at the Gabba. And so I think it's a combination for Rahane, let's be clear, on some bad captaincy decisions here, but mostly, his batting has not justified it. And in fairness to Varun, I'm going to try to channel my best voice for him, but it's not about, like, you cannot consistently have 3, 4, 5 be Kohli, Pujara, Rahane. Something needs to change. They are all that same generation of cricketer. Kohli's not going anywhere. So one off, maybe both of Pujara and Rahane need to start to turn. And Pujara has still shown the grit and the ability to save us innings in the last 6 months or so. Rahane hasn't really showed us anything. So the risk is you're going to South Africa, where Rahane is the only Indian batsman who's succeeded there recently, all the variety of different things. But there's no doubt that if you look at Rahane's, Varun's final comment, I'll finish channeling him, was if your average runs scored in the last few years is not even higher than your age, then that's a problem. And Rahane's age is currently higher than his average since the start of 2020. And that's a problem. It's just not good enough. Right. And I agree with all of that. But that argument holds good for the man who would replace him as well, Virat Kohli.
Yeah.
It holds good for the man who bats at number 3 as well, Cheteshwar Pujara.
Yeah.
So why are we singling Rahane out? I'll tell you why I like Rahane, right? I like him because he reminds me of the old school of Indian cricketer. You had the Dravids, the Lakshmans, the Tendulkars who kept their head down, did their job, didn't sledge, smiled when they were sledged, did their job and went home and didn't get involved with the opposition. Then came Kohli and everybody was like, oh my God, this guy's in everyone's face. And then you saw what he could bat like. Then came Rohit and you're like, okay, great. And then Rahane just sort of faded from there. He came back to prominence earlier this year. This is how short our memories are. He won the Gabba in January. We're in November. And we're talking about getting rid of him in 10 months' time. For good. Okay, fine. If we do get rid of him, Kohli comes in. And the reason we would get rid of him is because somebody better than him has come along. And that's just a fact. At this point, the numbers are Shreyas Iyer scored 165 runs in the last 170 runs in the first test match he ever played. Rahane scored, what did he get? 35 and 4, 39 runs, right? Have we had enough of Rahane to drop him long term? Do we give him another shot in the last, say this is your last game? The Wankhede is going to be your last test match. Because honestly, let's just put the cards on the table. There's one thing we need to think about for Wankhede. Nothing else. Barring injury, we only need to think whether Rahane plays.
One spot, yeah.
It's one spot. And because Kohli is going to walk back in.
So let's go to what you were leading up to. In your position, the only Indian male to have ever made a century and a 50 on test debut is going to be dropped. This is the Karun Nair model again. We're killing players' careers. You shouldn't have played him.
I don't want to drop him. So where
does Kohli's spot come from?
Kohli's spot comes from Rahane. But my question is there any hope for Rahane or are the selectors going to say that you've served us for a long time. We want to give you a chance to score runs one last time. Iyer is a man for the future. You've got experience in South Africa, so we're going to give you one more test match. If you score runs at the Wankhede, Iyer will sit that out because he's young. He's got a future. It's unfair on him, yes, but we want to give you, because you've been a long-time servant of Indian cricket, one more shot.
Yeah, I almost sort of think the opposite. I think Rahane sits out, and if Iyer scores runs again, then they have a really tough situation going to South Africa. Now, South Africa is going to change completely, right? Rohit should be back. Rahul should be back. Then you got Kohli, Pujara. So the lineup looks very different. I don't know if Gill plays. I don't know if
Gill go to 5?
That's what I'm saying. Does Gill go? Like the whole discussion could change. But I almost think if you're being strategic about it, you sit Rahane out, but not forever. Not this is it. You're done. You sit him out of the Wankhede. If Iyer performs, you have a good problem on your hand. You got to figure out who to take in your 11 to Australia. But Rahane obviously is still a big part of the equation. If Iyer fails, then you have your excuse to say, cool, Iyer, you had a great debut, you did well, but you're not quite ready for South Africa. So we're still going to play Rahane at 5 in South Africa. Is it fair? Probably not. Is any of this fair? I mean, you have tremendous quality players who can all argue they have a long career. But anyway, that's how I think they play it. But it's obviously very possible they do what you said, which is they say to Iyer, look, you're a prospect for the future. We have to give Rahane one more chance. The risk there is Rahane could fail again and still be a good bet for South Africa, right? He plays better overseas than he does at home. He just does. He hasn't necessarily maybe recently, but anyway, we could argue about this forever. But I don't think whether he plays in the Wankhede or not, I don't think it defines whether he should play in South Africa. I think he should be in your consideration set for South Africa. You should travel there, see how the net sessions go, see how people are feeling, see what is going on in practice, and then make the call then.
Okay. And I think it's time, performance. I mean, at the end of the day, the only currency batsmen have are runs. Mm-hmm. And if you're not scoring runs, no matter how nice a guy you are, no matter what you've done in the past.
You don't think Rahane's had a bad enough run to be dropped yet?
I think he has.
Oh, I thought you said he played.
I'm just trying to think whether there's any argument that can be made to play him there, because I like the guy. I just don't think you need to score runs to stay in this Indian cricket team. You're a runner-up for World Test Championship.
Yeah.
This is not a joke of a team to get into. You can't average less than 40. You need to score runs. That's all you need to. He needs to go back to scoring runs, whether they're ugly, beautiful, whatever. He needs to get runs. He needs to get big runs, and he's not done that for so long. So maybe he needs to go back to domestic cricket, find his love for the game again. Maybe he's desperate to perform, so that pressure is telling on him. Maybe he just needs to say, okay, this may not be my last inning. Imagine being Rahane. You've done whatever you can, right? Like, and it still isn't working. So maybe you just need to take a break. And I do feel for him, because I know he's been a wonderful servant for Indian cricket, but I think it is time for him to go. Similarly, Pujara is coming to the end of his tenure as well. So he's not far away. His averages aren't that much better. He's not a great asset in the field. So yeah, I think we're going to see a bit of a change of a guard. You're going to see Gill, Hanuma. Hanuma's not even playing, and he'd just be like, what? I mean, now is a year ahead of him in the pecking order.
It's just
he leapfrogged Karun Nair,
the
right?
depth
And
is
like
just
now Iyer's leapfrogged him. So anyway, it's all great, but you need to have the people scoring runs in the team. And so Dravid brought in professionalism when he came in as captain in the 2000s. The only metric needs to be performance, not really potential if it's not a young player. Unfortunately, that's the way of the world. You put the old tiger out to pasture, man. You send him away. Anyway, okay. Ashwin, we've talked a lot about this test match. The Wankhede test match is not far away. Any changes for this team other than the obvious Rahane for Kohli swap?
I mean, I think that you're thinking there's a world where somebody like a Jayant Yadav comes in, becomes a fourth spinning batting option.
No, I was thinking an Ishant Sharma sits out and they play Rahane and Iyer.
Oh, so you're thinking just 3 spinners and 1 quick. I thought you were saying 4 spinners.
Ashwin bowls.
Got it.
Opens the bowling, which he does anyway.
Yeah, It's not a bad option. I don't think they change it up. I don't think they change the bowlers. I think
Siraj? No Siraj?
No, I think Ishant and Umesh will continue unless they're doing workload management stuff where they want to rest one of them because they're planning to take both to South Africa. So that's the only situation.
Okay, interesting. Anyway, guys, the other thing that's happening in the world of cricket is the IPL retentions, which incidentally were being talked about during the test match as well by the commentators, which was another interesting point. But Ashwin, run us through these retentions and what do you think of them, man?
Yeah, as of what I have in front of me right now, it looks like basically Chennai, KKR, and Delhi are the only team that have announced all 4 retentions. I think as of the time of recording, it's noon on Tuesday, India time. So we're still about 6-7 hours away from the deadline. So by the time you listen to this, there may be more. But what we're going to walk through is who's been retained so far. So again, you can retain up to 4. The first player is worth 16. The second is worth 12. The third is worth 8. Fourth is worth 6. And then, those are figures in Indian crore rupees. And then and only 2 of them can be overseas. Now, if you don't retain 4, the values are slightly different, but I'm not going to bore you without those. We'll do a quick rundown. CSK, Jadeja, no question. The best Ravindra, as we've established on the show. Ruturaj Gaikwad, interesting, but a good show of faith in a future talent. Moeen Ali, I would say maybe a little bit of recency bias there, but also gives a good sort of overall all-round balance is what I'm looking for. And then your boy, MS Dhoni. And I thought that was an interesting one. So I'll let you comment on that one really quickly.
Absolute scenes. Why is he still playing?
What? You're supposed to be supportive.
I am, but I'm just like, you won the IPL. You don't have to do anything anymore. You scored 18 of 7 against my team. Let us be in peace. I'm happy for that to be my last memory of you putting us out of the what was it? It wasn't the eliminator. Whatever the first qualifier.
Yeah, the qualifier.
Now. He's won the IPL. He's handed the trophy to the young boys. That's why you walk off into the sunset. I don't know what he's doing. Why is he playing for another cycle?
He specifically said he will be
I have to get shit from you for another 3 years.
It's exciting. That's great. That's the
for
only
him
reason.
Batting at 8 or whatever. And
this is MS Dhoni is the true test of our fans who've been loyal since day one, because he's the recurring story arc, if you will, across all the seasons of Edges and Sledges. Dhoni is the Dhoni battle between you and me will continue. But anyway, interesting from CSK. Other than Dhoni, honestly, no real surprise. Let me run through the franchises that have only released 1. Rajasthan Royals, only Sanju Samson. Not a huge surprise for me. I could have seen a world where they let him go because he's been erratic, but they wanted some continuity there, but they needed a big shakeup. Actually, the Punjab Kings, I'm not seeing any retentions so far.
Yeah.
So that would be That would be the one. Again, it's very possible by the time.
Apparently, there's been some temptation by the Lucknow franchise and
I expect
RPS group and
expect people like Rahul and Iyer will be big draws as leaders, right? So that'll be an interesting one. Sunrisers have only retained Kane Williamson,
which is insane. You had Rashid, boss.
But they could, right? They again, they still have time.
They could tomorrow, but I mean, apparently, then he wanted to be the first pick who gets paid the most.
Yeah, you're right.
He's going to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
Imagine Delhi picking up Rashid Khan.
But think about David Warner, man of the series in the T20 World Cup. Yes, he had a bad
There's
IPL.
been a breakdown there, though. There's been some management situation.
Yeah. So David Warner will show up big somewhere. I mean, again, Lucknow and Ahmedabad, I think, get first picks right after the retentions are done. So if I'm not mistaken, they get 3 players each from the pool after the retention. So who's going to go? You're going to have Iyer, Rahul, Warner, Rashid, maybe, like big names. So anyway, let's go quickly through the last couple because we have to wrap up. Mumbai Indians, Rohit Sharma and Jasprit Bumrah. Very interesting. A lot of discussion about the Pauly, the Pandya brothers, at least one of them. So that's going to be interesting. Again, Hardik could absolutely be an early draw for one of the new franchises, even just to be the face and the leader, right? RCB, Virat Kohli and Glenn Maxwell. I think Varun said this on an earlier show, but AB retiring made that easy for them. So they've gone with...
What about DDP? They didn't go for DDP?
Not yet. So it's possible they do go for him, but also maybe they want just enough room to be able to change. And again, it's worth noting that the retention might be more expensive than the value you think you pay for him, right? So if they don't value DDP at more than 8 crores, then it's not worth that third retention.
And no Chahal either.
No Chahal. So lots of big ones.
Or Jameson.
Yeah, who have I missed? KKR. Sunil Narayan, no surprise for me. Andre Russell, no surprise for me. Varun Chakravarti, which is interesting, which means not only do they want to keep him, obviously, but they value him at least 8 crores. And then Venkatesh Iyer, which I think, a little bit of recency bias, but great for him. And I think he would have been a big bidding war, right? Like if you had an all-rounder who can hit big sixes, he would have gone for
Indian
a big
as well.
So
Indian who can open the batting, bat down the order, can bowl, seam up.
So gives you options for sure. And then I think we've talked to everybody except our own boys. So Delhi Capitals, which we've talked before offline, but Rishabh Pant, no surprise. But also clearly investing in him as future skipper, which I think is smart from a branding standpoint as well. Prithvi Shaw, a little bit of a surprise for me, to be honest.
But you need that one attacking opener guy, I guess.
You need that one attacking.
And he's young, so
Yeah, Akshar Patel. Again, what we've talked about. I don't quite rate him as highly in T20s as I do in Test cricket, but I hope he proves me wrong. And then Andrej Nokia.
Nokia is a good one.
Nokia's a good shout, but again, Rabada was the leader of our attack from before Nokia came on the scene, and so you feel for him a little, but you fully expect he get picked up. I wouldn't be surprised if Delhi goes back and tries to bid on a Dhawan, maybe bid on a Rabada, but they obviously didn't pick them in their automatic retention.
I just keep imagining Rashid Khan in Delhi colours.
That's it. Now I've lost you. You're too excited. But
I don't know. I just can't get over it.
But exciting times. It never ends, right? Test cricket's going on. Test cricket overseas is going to start again soon. And yet we're still talking IPL stuff. But over to you to wrap us up, DJ. Very exciting.
Yeah, man. That's the show. Interesting that we are 0-0 going into the second test match when everyone's predicted a 2-0 sweep. I'm just hoping that we don't have a nasty surprise and end up losing the test at the Wankhede. The pitch there has bounced and turned. I remember the Monty Panesar Graham Swan masterclass where we lost the test match to England in 2012, I want to say. So yeah, I think New Zealand probably will get rid of Ajaz Patel and bring back a Wagner or someone like that because they'll be bouncing that track. And they've seen the quicks do the damage in the first test match, even on a dead pitch like that. So I wasn't impressed by Patel, to be honest. He was okay. And you've got Rachin, Ravindra, the second best Ravindra, anyway to do the spin stuff. But that is the show, guys. And we will be back next week once the test match is over to record and talk all about it. It has been a pleasure, as always, Ashwin, to speak to you. And yeah, guys, write into us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. We're at One Tip, One Hand. As I said, leave us a review. There's so many of you that listen to us. We need to have at least 1,000 reviews in the next week, okay? So we'll be counting. So make sure you do that on Apple Podcasts or wherever else you listen to the show. Comment, like, subscribe, etc., etc., etc. You know the spiel. We will be back next week. This is the Edges and Sledges Cricket Podcast signing off.
VM